Hello, everybody. Nelson Vergel here with ExcelMale.com and DiscountingLabs.com. Today, I wanted to do a video to debunk a lot of the myths and misconceptions that a lot of men have mostly about estradiol and how estradiol actually changes things or variables in the body when somebody is put on testosterone replacement therapy. And I'm going to show a paper basically that is the most important paper in the field right now. It was done by one of the most important researchers in the field for the last easily 25 years to 30 years, Dr. Basine. And it was actually funded by the government, by us, by the US taxpayers, to follow men, older men over 65 years of age that were put on testosterone gels, on androgel, and to basically follow them for a year and measure different things in their blood, like HDL cholesterol, hemoglobin, bone density, sexual desire, and prostate-specific antigen, PSA. So this study, which was published over 2 years ago, has not really been reviewed by anybody. And it was a really big shocker for me. It actually enforced all of the information that I've given you guys through my videos in the past about the importance of estradiol in men, especially men using testosterone replacement. But I will show, before I start the review of the paper, I'm going to show a slide on what the study was about. The study basically wanted to answer a few questions, and it was a big study. It was 788 patients were recruited in the United States only. This was, as I said, funded by the NIH, the National Institute of Health, which is funded by taxpayer money. And they enrolled males over 65 years of age and that had serum testosterone levels, total testosterone, under 275 nanograms per deciliter. That's a pretty low testosterone level. Some insurance companies use around 350 or so or below to justify payment for testosterone replacement. But anyway, so older men with low testosterone. They gave them, unfortunately, back then that was the only product that was mostly covered by insurance, the 1% testosterone gel, androgel, probably the biggest seller, which was then changed to 1.62%, but this is at 1%. And they started a very low dose of 5 grams daily of the gel. And you can tell here, every pump action on the little pump, it comes in a pump, is 1.25. So you have to basically do a few pumps to get to 5. And that dose was titrated up to a maximum of 15 grams per day to adjust for a better testosterone level of over 350 or so, or 400. So they actually, most men were on a higher dose than 5 grams. And it was actually this man, and some men were put on placebo gel. Basically gel without testosterone. And they split the study, actually, they did sub-studies, so sub-analysis. All of them, the 788, were followed for physical function, just to see if they got stronger or they walked faster or their leg strength was better after a year. There was a sexual functioning trial, also sub-analysis, all of them. We haven't seen data from that one. I really want to see data already published on that. A vitality trial, cognitive function trial. And as you can tell, there are different numbers here, but they're really the total number of men enrolled in the testosterone trials, or the T trials, 788. But anyways, there's a bone trial to follow men and do DEXA scans to see if their bone density improved on the testosterone gel. That is actually the cohort that was included in the paper of 211, but really they did not reach 211. It was actually a smaller number of patients, but Dr. Basine and others reviewed the data because that sub-study was really followed closely with blood testing that most of us do on testosterone. They tested their total testosterone every few visits. This is a 12-month study. Estradiol, sensitive estradiol, they used the actual very high accuracy, gold standard liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry tests. So these tests were done the proper way, and DHT levels over 12 months, and followed hemoglobin, high density lipoprotein, the good cholesterol, which tends to be decreased as you go up on the dose on testosterone. Bone density, there's some good data that shows testosterone improves the bone density, and of a lumbar spine, sexual desire through a questionnaire, and PSA testing. So the results were interesting, very interesting. And this is just the abstract. I'm going to show you some graphs that the increases in hemoglobin and sexual desire were greater with larger increases in estradiol. So the more estradiol man had, the more sexual desire and the more hemoglobin, which is obviously connected to hematocrit, the portion of red blood cells in the blood, which can and tends to increase blood viscosity. And doctors tend to send patients to phlebotomy to get some blood drawn, donated, or this, every 3 or so months. So anyways, so the larger the amount of estradiol in the blood, the more hemoglobin and sexual desire. So that was a shocker. So a lot of you guys out there think that the more estradiol, the less sexual desire. And also, they were larger with high change of DHT compared to low change of DHT. That's also a no-brainer when it comes to sexual desire. We have some data on increased amount of dihydrotestosterone, one of metabolites, like estradiol is one of the metabolites of testosterone, and sexual function. What was really shocking and not expected is that they also saw that men that had higher estradiol were also showing larger decreases of HDL. Their HDL would go down more than men that had low estradiol. And that was unexpected. No, even Dr. Basine admitted that that's something completely out of what their expectations were. And obviously the bone density, by DEXA, was also increased with estradiol. And we know that from many studies that show that really estradiol is the hormone or the metabolite of testosterone, mostly responsible for increased bone density. So that was not a shocker. And they really found no consistent relationship between like DHT, testosterone, estradiol with PSA. So that's actually good news. Some doctors think that the more testosterone you give somebody, the higher their PSA levels, or the more estradiol, the more PSA. So, I'm going to show you some graphs that are actually very eye-opening, to be clear, because I think this is the only study out there that has followed, in this case was 111 patients for 12 months. And this is the baseline characteristics. Most of them, actually, the median age was 72. They were older than, obviously, 65. 88% white, BMI of over 30, a little, heavy or obese, 63%. So these are heavier men, obviously over 65. 38%, 37%, 38 had diabetes, 72% had high blood pressure. So these are men that were not in good shape, obviously, as you can tell. The median testosterone when they entered the study was 231. DHT a little on the lower side at 21.2, and estradiol at 20, which is what most doctors actually shoot for, thinking that estradiol is bad for you. So they all tend to go down to 20 for with anastrozole and all those treatments. And HDL was in a little bit of the lower side, but not too bad, 44. And PSA, the median was 1.1. So no big problems with PSA in the baseline data. So sicker men, obviously more diabetes, they were heavier, they were older. So this is not the usual population you see in studies. This is the first study actually said, let's look at older men that may not be in shape and may have high blood pressure and diabetes. So this is, and I made, I highlighted the X and Y axis. This is looking at estradiol, average estradiol change. This is a delta. This is the change from baseline, and predicted hemoglobin, and the amounts of the hemoglobin is what carries oxygen and is usually carried inside red blood cells. So hemoglobin went up as estradiol, the change in estradiol went up. Okay, so that's not, that was, we've never seen data, estradiol, linking estradiol hemoglobin. We thought it was mostly an effect of testosterone itself, but mostly the low T and high DHT crowd right here had actually the most effect on hemoglobin once estradiol went up. For those patients that had low T, high DHT, and high estradiol, you see an increase, a more intense increase in hemoglobin. But anyways, let's move on. In DHT, they only saw, plateau. Testosterone, they saw a plateau. There was no effect of total testosterone on hemoglobin. So this is very shocking because we really expect the total testosterone hemoglobin to have like an up curve, like right here. So you saw a little uptick here, but not as much as estradiol. So definitely this is shock. This is a surprise for researchers, and myself included. So I've been reading papers for easily 30 years. So big surprise there. Testosterone was not the one influencing hemoglobin increases as much. And then we'll go to the other graphs. This is looking at HDL, predicted HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, quote unquote. The higher the estradiol changes, the more, basically this is minus, the more drop in HDL. Completely surprising, because we really always have seen data on how estradiol improves lipids, HDL and LDL. But in this case, in the study, researchers actually mentioned that was not expected at all. And this is really considering basically controlling for all the variables, okay? When it comes to DHT, there was a decrease and then it plateaued for HDL. And then you see in testosterone, there was also a decrease, but not as marked and intense as estradiol. So yeah, all of them have a decreasing effect. The higher the DHT, the higher the estradiol, the higher the testosterone, the lower the HDL. But most of the three, out of the three variables, estradiol had the most effect. So now we go for bone density, no brainer. The higher the estradiol change, the more the bone density. That's what was expected. A little bump on the DHT. When DHT went up, then it plateaued. Some effect, but not much. And testosterone all flat, basically. So really what improves bone mineral density is, and this is in the lumbar area, it's a DEXA of the lumbar area, is estradiol. That's obvious. That was non-surprising. And this is the real shocker here. It's measuring or predicted sexual desire change with average estradiol change over 12 months. You see here the average change of estradiol, the sexual desire was kind of flat, went down, and then it picked up considerably if estradiol increased by 20 points, and then it kind of plateaued after that or on a higher level, okay? And these graphs on this side just stratifies subgroups. So the ones with the highest change or the best change or the highest change in sexual function were the ones with high T, high DHT, and high estradiol. Not really a no-brainer, because we expected those with higher T and higher DHT especially to have higher sexual desire, but also estradiol has a function, and you can see it here. DHT had, the higher the DHT, the higher the sexual function, but not as pronounced as estradiol. You can see a bigger effect there, okay? When it comes to total testosterone, believe it or not, the sexual desire was kind of flat. The more testosterone, the total testosterone in your blood, okay? So that's something that a lot of guys complain about. Hey, my testosterone is higher than it used to be. My sexual desire is not there or hasn't changed much. Well, this graph shows that unlike what we all expected, testosterone by itself, when you control for everything else, is not the main factor in sexual function, sexual desire. You have a little bit of increase on DHT, and you have more of an increase on estradiol. So big shocker. This is definitely the biggest shock when I read the paper. Kind of, reinforced what I've been saying. I have like 5 or 6 videos on estradiol and men and all the misconceptions. I think it's the biggest misconception in the whole field of testosterone replacement. Doctors are prescribing an anastrozole, which is an estrogen blocker, estradiol blocker, like crazy, and they shouldn't, because you need to let estradiol go unless somebody has really issues with severe gynecomastia, which is usually more prevalent on men that have low testosterone and high estradiol. But if you have your testosterone replacement, your testosterone is good, or 500 or so, your estradiol should not be controlled. But as I said, most clinics out there, especially telemedicine and cash clinics, are prescribing an anastrozole because men are asking for them, and men think that blocking estradiol, which is the main estrogen, it's a thing to do to improve sexual function, which once again is being proven not so by this study. When it comes to PSA, it was actually, estradiol had, this is 1, and then it went to 0. So it had no effect on PSA, no matter what you hear. Some people say that estrogen is the main factor in increased PSA in men, but in this case, it didn't really show it. DHT, which really it's a kind of, this is more surprising because there's a lot of content and hypotheses and a few studies, very small, that link DHT, increases in DHT with increases in PSA. They saw obviously nothing there. Testosterone only saw an uptick for a large total testosterone change, over 800 or 1,000. And that was really expected because testosterone, increased testosterone can increase the volume of the prostate to a certain level. There's a saturation point that Dr. Montagnier and many doctors, researchers have looked into, and then the volume actually plateaus and PSA plateaus. But in this case, you see an uptick on PSA change for those that had the largest changes in testosterone. But you only see basically, it looks alarming, right? But the PSA, you see 0.1. So it's really an increase of 1.3. So it's not horribly alarming when you do, obviously, a medium and average. In this case, these are averages, by the way. So, there you have it. I've been saying for a while that we're going the wrong way when it comes to estradiol management. This is a small study. It was done by, and you can see it's published by the Endocrine Society, big names. All of them are big name researchers. Dr. Basine, I have a huge respect for him. He did, if you guys probably, the nerds out there, and whoever is watching this video by now, it's a nerd, because most guys don't want to hear details on any studies. They just want to be told in 40 characters what to do. But Dr. Basine was the first person in the 90s to do a study on 600 milligrams a week of testosterone to see what would happen to body changes, et cetera, et cetera. So he is definitely a pioneer. He helped a lot of people with HIV wasting back in the days to helping in research, study design. So I have a huge respect for him. And when I saw that he was obviously involved in this publication, I had to tell you guys. I haven't done a video in a while, but this study really compelled me to do so. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a lot of information. Some of you are not into specifics like this, but hey, I'm a nerd and this is for nerds. So I hope you enjoyed, and we'll do another video on more data on estradiol very soon. I have another study to review and do a video for. So guys, subscribe to ExcelMale YouTube channel. Visit excelmale.com and register. That's the largest, probably the most moderated, well, I am biased, TRT forum online, and discounterlabs.com, where you can buy lab tests online without seeing a doctor in most states in the United States. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.